Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gauravinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. It was supposed to be Padmalochini Mataji who was supposed to speak today, but unfortunately she lost power yesterday, and I think the power is not yet back, so she's not able to come and give the class. So I'll have to backfill for her, and it's always difficult to fill up for a more illustrious speaker, but I'll try my best, whatever I can do. So we were discussing the 15th chapter, and I think last Pyari Prabhu completed 15.12. So yesterday we all were on moon with Pyari Prabhu, or we were at least discussing about moon. So today we'll be back on earth and we'll start discussing about earth again. So let me give a quick like a recap of what has happened so far, so we have some context when we discuss these verses. One second, I have some. Okay. So what has happened so far is, in the 15th chapter until the 6th verse, Krishna has actually compared the material world with the upside down banyan tree, which kinds of depicts that this world is a reflection of the original spiritual world. And at the end of the 6th verse, he kind of said that, you know, the solution is that we have to cut our attachment to this world. We have to be detached and we have to get out of this world. And then he started saying that actually what happens if we do not get detached to this world, you know. So 15.7 is a very important verse, and Prabhupada has quoted it many times. Mamayivamsho jivaloke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manah shasthani indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. So Krishna says that actually we are Krishna's parts and particles. We are like small particles of consciousness, and we are parts of the supreme whole. We are parts and Krishna is the whole. Because we have forgotten our relationship with Krishna, because we have forgotten our attraction to Krishna, we are kind of struggling in this material world. We have come under the six senses, and then there is a karshati that is happening. Karshati is basically friction, which is basically struggle. We are all struggling in this material world. So if we are not able to cut our attachment to the material world, then we have to struggle in this material world. So from 7 to 12, Krishna talks about, 7 to 11, Krishna talks about the struggle that happens of the living entity in the material world. So if you remember in the 10th verse, Krishna had said about Jnana Chakshu, you know, a person who has Jnana Chakshu, a person who has the eyes trained in knowledge, he can see what's happening in this material world, how the the soul is struggling with the six senses, you know. Vimudha na anupashyanti, pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. So Vimudha cannot see. Vimudha na anupashyanti. Mudha is fool. Vimudha is a special kind of fool. Now, he cannot understand what's happening in this material world. But who can understand? He says, Pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. A person who has the eyes trained in knowledge, he can see exactly, he can observe what is happening in this material world, how the different souls are stuck in this material world and they are struggling in this material world. So that is how in the 10th verse he describes. So until the 11th verse, Krishna talks about exactly how the soul is struggling in this material world. So the Gyan that is mentioned, the Gyana Chakshu, from the eyes of knowledge, the person from the 7th to 11th verse, Krishna describes at the level of the soul, you know, how the soul is struggling in this material world. Now, from the verses 12 to 15, what Krishna is going to do is, he is going to take the vision from the jnana to bhakti. So he kind of says that actually how even when we are struggling in this material world, we have when we are living in this material world, there are so many things that we need in this material world to sustain our existence. So Krishna talks about the role of God, that it is God ultimately who is kind of sustaining our material existence also in this material world. So we already discussed the 12th verse yesterday when we were at Moon with Pyari Prabhu. So the 12th verse, Krishna talks about the cosmological role of Krishna. So he kind of describes that he is the splendor of the sun and moon, and he is the splendor of fire. So we all know that sun, moon, and fire are very important for us. We can't live without them. And in the 13th verse, he will describe his terrestrial role. Terrestrial means that at the earthly level, what is the role that Krishna plays? And then at the 14th verse, he will describe his physiological role, how he's sustaining our physiological existence. And in the 15th verse, he will describe about his psychological and spiritual role, how he is also maintaining us spiritually and psychologically also. So basically how it is, we live in a universe. So in the 12th verse, Krishna describes that universe is maintained by Krishna. Then within the universe, we live at this planet Earth. So he says that he maintains the planet Earth also, and all the different planets which are there actually in this universe. So within the planet, we live in a body. So that body is also maintained by Krishna. That is what is described in the 14th verse. And in the 15th verse, he describes that actually, and when we live in the body, we also need the mind to function. So that mind also is ultimately guided by Krishna. So he is kind of present at every step. It is ultimately Krishna who is sustaining our existence even in this material world. And the purpose of him sustaining this universe is he wants to take our consciousness out from the material reality to the spiritual reality. So he wants us to focus our consciousness on the spiritual reality, on Krishna. And when we are able to do that, we'll be able to get out of this material world and we'll be able to get back to the spiritual world. So that is the theme of the 15th chapter. So yesterday we discussed about when Krishna said in the 12th verse that he is the splendor of the sun, moon, and fire. Now, if you remember, the same three elements, sun, moon, and fire, they were also talked about in the 6th verse of the 15th chapter. The exactly same three elements. Actually, there is one other element that Krishna talked about in the 6th verse, but these three elements were common. So in the 6th verse, Krishna had said that his abode, the spiritual world, is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. So the four elements he had talked about in the 6th verse. So the theme there was that the spiritual world does not need the sun, the moon, or the fire. It is like self-sufficient. But when we live in the material world, the same three elements that are not there in the spiritual world, those three elements are required. The sun is required, the moon is required, and the fire is also required. So he says that actually it is me only who gives these three. If I am not there, the sun, the moon, and fire cannot exist actually. That is what he had said in the 12th verse. So today we are going to discuss the 13th verse. Let me quickly share my screen. So a lot of devotees are not there today because they have lost power. Almost all the devotees who live in Farmington area, none of them have power. So we don't expect them to join. And actually, this is the reason I have to give the class today, because Padmalochani Mataji also lost power today. So we won't have a lot of participation, but whatever we have, we can, Okay, all right. Is Rasraj Prabhu there?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhu, you're not doing the live on Facebook today?
No, it's going.
Okay. Actually, one thing I wanted to mention is, I think on Monday when you did the live on YouTube, there was no sound on YouTube at least.
Yeah,
for 40
that
minutes.
I realized later,
Okay.
Prabhu.
All right.
Later, but and just 10 minutes before I corrected that, so that video, yeah.
Okay. All right. All right, so let's discuss the 13th verse. Excuse me. You can repeat after me. Gama vishya cha bhutani
Kama Vishyacha Bhutani
dharyamaham ojasa
Dharmamaya Ashasha
pushnami chausadhi sarvaha
Pushnami Chaudhari Sharvaha
soma bhutva rasatmakaha
Somo Bhutma Rashamatmaka
gam avishya cha bhutani
Gama Vishyacha Bhutani
dharamyaham ojasa
Dharamayam Aham Ojasha
pushnami chausadhi sarvaha
Pushnami Chaudhari Sharva Sharvaha
somo bhutva rasatmakaha
Shomo Bhutva Rashmadharga
gam avishya cha bhutani
Gama
dharamya
Vishyacha Bhutani
dharamyaham ojasa pushnami chausadhi sarvaha
Pushnami Choshada Sharvaha
somo bhutva rasatmakaha.
Shomo Bhutma Rashmataka
Anyone else would like to recite the verse?
Gama Vishyacha Bhutani
Gama vishya cha bhutani
Dharma me Aham Ojasha
dharamyaham aham ojasa
Pushnami Choshadya Sharvaha
pushnami chausadhi sarvaha
Shomo Bhutva Rashatmaka
somo bhutva rasatmakaha. Anyone else would like to?
Kama Vishya Bhutani
Gama vishya cha bhutani
Karayamyaham Ojasa
dharamyam aham ojasa
Pushnami Choshadhi Sarvaha
pushnami chausadhi sarvaha
Omo Bhutva Rasatmakaha
somo bhutva rasatmakaha. Anyone else?
Gama Vishyacha Bhutani
Gama vishya cha bhutani
Dharyam Aham Osaja
dharyamyaham ojasa
Ojasha
Pushnami Chausadi Sarva
pushnami chausadhi sarvaha
Somo Bhutva Rasatmaka
somo bhutva rasatmakaha. Okay, let's recite the synonyms. Gam,
Gam
the planets.
planets
Avishya,
Vishya
entering.
entering
Cha,
Cha
also.
also
Bhutani,
Bhutani
the living entities.
the living entities
Dharyami,
Dharyami
sustain.
sustain
Aham,
Aham
I. Ojasa,
Ojasha
by my energy.
by my energy
Pushnami,
Pushnami
am nourishing.
I'm nourishing
Cha,
Cha
and
and
Aushadhi,
Aushadhi
vegetables. Sarvaha,
Sarvaha
all.
all
Somaha,
Shomaha
the moon.
the moon
Bhutva,
Bhutva
becoming.
becoming
Rasatmakaha,
Rashatmaka
supplying the juice.
supplying the juice.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. I enter into each planet. By my energy, they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. Purport: it is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Lord enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being. That is discussed in the Brahma Samhita. It is said that that one plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, enters into the planets, the universe, the living entity, and even into the atom. So due to his entrance, everything is appropriately manifested. When the spirit soul is there, a living man can float on the water. But when the living spark is out of the body and the body is dead, the body sinks. Of course, when it is decomposed, it floats just like straw and other things. But as soon as the man is dead, he at once sinks in the water. Similarly, all these planets are floating in space. And this is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His energy is sustaining each planet, just like a handful of dust. If someone holds a handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust falling. But if one throws it in the air, it will fall down. Similarly, these planets, which are floating in the air, are actually held in the first of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. By his strength and energy, all moving and non-moving things stay in their place. It is said in the Vedic hymns that because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sun is shining and the planets are steadily moving. Were it not for him, all the planets would scatter like dust in air and perish. Similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent. Human society is working, living comfortably and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, mankind could not survive. The word rasatmakaha is very significant. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami iti namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshataya. I'll read the translation one more time. I enter into each planet by my energy, they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. So the first thing that Krishna says here is that, I enter into each planet by my energy, they stay in orbit. So now if I ask a question, what is our default understanding of how these planets stay in orbit? What is the general understanding about this? Anyone would like to answer? What holds the planet together? What is the general understanding? What is the scientific understanding?
Gravitational pull.
Gravity. Yep.
Yeah. So actually, the default understanding or the scientific understanding is that it is due to gravity, which that is holding the planets together. It's due to gravity, the different planets are staying in orbit, and it is gravity due to which the moon is circling the earth. That is the default understanding. Now, who gave gravity? Who gave who invented or who discovered gravity?
Newton.
Yes. So actually, before Newton discovered gravity, and we all know how it's a very famous incident. He saw an apple falling, and then he asked, "Why did this apple fall? Why did it not float in the air?" So, and why does every apple fall? No matter where you drop the apple on the earth, which specific you drop it here in Connecticut, or you drop it in New York, or you drop it in Paris, or you drop it in New Delhi, every apple will fall on the earth. It's not going to float. So he came up with the idea of the gravity. Now it is interesting that before Newton came up with this theory of gravity, at that time, these the religious people, they have been talking about it. That it is God, who is sustaining the different planets. Due to God, that all the planets are moving in so the scientists had discovered that the planets are revolving around the sun, and the moon is revolving around the earth. All that was, and the earth is also kind of rotating on its axis. So all that was discovered, kind of, more or less. but they were not able to explain that how this is happening exactly. So when Newton, when he came up with this idea of gravity, and he kind of more or less proved it, that it is actually gravity that basically keeps the planets together, then it became like a sensation. Like yesterday we were talking about the moon landing. So moon landing, actually, that time, when the first time when the moon landing happened, so we were all not there at that time. It was almost, I mean, at least I was not there. There are few people who would have been, like Kari Prabhu, I'm sure, would have been there. Prabhupada was there at that time. But it became quite a sensation. People started thinking that we have gone to the moon. Yes, we can do everything. So that power of science, that people had realized that the science can do everything and anything. So that was kind of, it became like a euphoria. And that is why Prabhupada, if we see in Prabhupada, and he said about when this was discussed about the moon. So one of the things that he said, even if we have gone on moon, what are you going to do over there? Same thing, eating, mating, sleeping, and defending is what you are going to do on the moon also. So what is so special about going to moon? Ultimately you will die. So the same consciousness that you have here, the same consciousness you will have there also. So unless we raise our consciousness, what is the point on going to moon, going to the moon? So similarly, when this Newton, when he discovered gravity, it became quite a sensation. The scientific community especially, and at that time there were quite a few theistic scientists at that time. Like Newton, it is well known that he was theistic. Even Einstein was theistic. They both accepted that there is a higher power behind the creation. It's not that the creation had come by chance. But the majority of the scientific community at that time, they were kind of atheistic. So when they understood that that now we have figured out how these planets stay in the orbit, and now there is no need for God. So actually Newton was quick to point out that what I have discovered is just a phenomenon. So what it is, so we ask a question to understand it better. We ask a question. Now, what is gravity? Now, gravity is the force applied by two objects on each other. And when we have to understand it from a cosmological perspective, it is due to gravity, due to which the planets, they kind of stay in their orbits. Okay, so if we understand it that way, that is gravity. Okay, and what keeps the if you ask it the reverse way, what keeps the planets in their orbit? No, it is gravity. So what they were talking about is, so this is what Newton said, that what I have done is I have just named a phenomena. You have found a phenomena. It's just like a phenomena. It's like it's something that is happening. So all he had done is just given a name to that phenomena. So gravity is the name given to it. But he said that that doesn't explain what causes gravity. What is it that causes one object to pull other object? What exactly is that? What causes that? What is the cause of gravity? We understand that there is gravity, but what causes gravity? That is something that science couldn't explain. That source of gravity, as we say, that cannot be explained. And Newton was not, and he pointed it out. He actually, I think he came up with an article which was published in the Science Journal at that time. So he pointed out very clearly that all I have done is I have just found a phenomena, but what causes that phenomena, that I cannot explain, or probably to this point science was not able to explain. Now later, I think Einstein did give some understanding about it. He said that time, space, and gravity is a characteristic of something like that. So he explained it in terms of the universe, but again he couldn't explain the full phenomena or what is the cause. But anyway, Einstein was not atheistic. But the point is that we can say that it is gravity, but ultimately even gravity cannot explain, because there has to be a source of gravity. We know that there are certain natural laws based on which the universe is working. There is a natural law. The sun is rising every day. Every day we have day, every day we have night. So all this is happening based on some natural laws. But who made those laws? Who actually activated those laws? That it does not explain. So science can only explain the different phenomena. So so what happened now is, earlier, not the entire scientific fraternity was not atheistic. There were a lot of theistic scientists also, but if we look at the current day science, and why Srila Prabhupada also criticized the scientist was, science was hijacked by atheistic people. So science by itself cannot be theistic or atheistic. It is just like a branch of knowledge. There are different branches of knowledge. History is one branch of knowledge. History is used to know about historical facts. Similarly, science is a branch of knowledge. Science, if we have to consider it, works on a principle called as fundamental naturalism. Fundamental naturalism means it basically, science looks for natural causes for natural phenomena. So by nature, it is not atheistic. It doesn't look for anything spiritual. It just looks for material things. When we say fundamental naturalism, it looks for natural causes for natural phenomena. What it also means is it looks for material causes for material phenomena. So by nature, it doesn't look for anything spiritual. It just deals with the material world. It deals with the material knowledge. The science cannot explain the existence of soul. They can understand, okay, there is something that happens in the body after which the body dies, but they cannot explain what exactly is that. What is it after which what leaves the body, due to which the body dies. To this date, they cannot explain the source of consciousness. Where is consciousness exactly? We have discussed it in one of the Sunday classes also, that the mainstream understanding was at least that the source of consciousness is in the brain. But there was this Canadian scientist who had proved by the different different experiments, that the source of consciousness is not in the brain. It is extracerebral. Extracerebral means it is outside of the brain. It's not within the brain. So science by itself is not atheistic, but what has happened is it has been hijacked by the atheistic people. So we know that the most famous scientist in our age, in our time, is who was he died now? Anyone knows his name? Anybody knows?
He was in a wheelchair.
Yes. What was his name?
Stephen something.
Yeah, Stephen
Stephen
Hawking.
Hawking.
Stephen Hawking. Yeah.
Right. So Stephen Hawking, it's well known that he was atheistic. Now, he had actually given many atheistic statements, and he also, something funny he came up with, at least a lot of people found it funny. He came up with this whole theory of that this planet is not livable. This planet, there are so many problems on this planet. There are, I may not be exactly quoting him the way he explained, but the essence of what he said was, this planet is not habitable. There are so many problems. There are floods, there are volcanoes, there are diseases, and so we should find another place in the universe. We should all the countries should come together. They should pool money, and they should spend the money on space research, and we have to find another place where we have to shift the whole of the mankind there. So, but we know that actually, no matter where you go in this material world, the same four problems would be there: birth, death, old age, and disease would be there. You cannot escape that. That is there on the planet Earth is not because of the Earth itself. It is because of the way we are using this planet. It is the way we are exploiting this planet. So there have been so many scientific studies has been conducted, and the one thing that comes out is every species contributes to the planet. And if you take out one species from the from the ecology, it basically impacts the ecology of the planet. But there is one species, which is human species, that doesn't actually contribute, and it will basically help the planet if the human species go extinct. So actually, the problems that are caused on this planet are not caused by the planet itself. By itself, the planet is good, it is habitable. But most of the problems that are caused is caused by human beings. Even if you look at the current pandemic that is spreading, what has happened is it is due to human problem. There are people who are trying to mess around with natural laws, and it is because of that this pandemic is spreading like anything. It started because of that. and then now nobody is able to stop it. No, America, it's considered to be the most technologically advanced country in the world at this point, and we all know that the most impacted by this pandemic is America. They just can't do anything at all. They can just make statements, you have to wear mask or don't wear mask or this or that, but ultimately people are dying. So many people have already died because of this pandemic. All this technological advancement is not able to do anything for that, although they are trying to find a vaccine now, but we don't know when the vaccine will come out. So the point is, most of the problems on this planet are caused by the human species, and because the consciousness is like that, until we change the consciousness, it's not going to help. No matter where you go on this, in this universe, the same problems will come up. Sooner or later, that planet also will become polluted, and the same problems that we are having here, those problems will start coming over there. Now, another thing that Krishna says in this verse, I just read it out. The next statement he says is, I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. So now we understand that photosynthesis is required for plants or for vegetables or, for trees. And what causes the photosynthesis? What do we need for photosynthesis? Anyone would like sunlight? Yes. So why does it say that, I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables? Now, this is also a kind of scientific studies happening now. It's not very clearly done so far, but a lot of studies are happening, and they are pointing to this fact that actually, just as the sun is required for photosynthesis and the plants to sustain, and actually sun is required for all lives to sustain on this planet. Without sun, no life can sustain. The moon also has its role to play. So what they have figured is, when the vegetables are grown at places where there are overcast situations. Overcast means there are a lot of clouds and the moon is not directly shining. And when the different vegetables are grown over there, the vegetables are not that, the taste is very different. It tastes almost like tasteless. For example, cauliflower has a natural flavor. But if you grow cauliflower at a place where there is no moonlight available because of whatever reasons, then the cauliflower that grows at a place where moonlight is available, it tastes completely different. So actually, the kind of, so this is kind of, this study is happening now. It's not, if you search on Google, you will find some studies that are being done by different scientists about it, that what is the role of moon. For in Bhagavatam, it comes out very clearly. I forgot which canto it is, but it is said that actually the Chandra is basically what sustains all the trees, and Chandra is also the deity of the trees. It kind of when the Prachetas, it comes in the past time, the Prachetas. When the Prachetas, they actually they go inside a kind of inside water to do austerities. And after their austerities are done, they get benediction from Lord Vishnu. They come out of the water and they see that the whole of the planet is kind of covered by trees. It was like there's so many trees, there's no land kind of remaining now. So they start cutting the tree. They start killing all the trees. And when they have cut almost like so many trees, at that time Chandra comes over there. He says that, don't do that, please. Don't just destroy all the trees. I understand is something, I exactly don't remember the past time, but the point is, in the Vedic scriptures, Chandra is accepted to be the caretaker of the trees. It is due to Chandra which the trees are sustaining, trees or plants or whatever. So, this, what Krishna is saying is also kind of slowly in the mainstream science, we are seeing that these kinds of studies are happening now. So now actually, this is just about gravity and all that. But if we talk about cosmology in general, no, it is a well-known fact that, the way life exists on the earth, it is, to say the least, it is 1 in a million chance. If you go by scientific, studies, it is 1 in a million chance. The science says that, everything came by chance. Basically, they're not able to explain the source. They can't exactly tell us that how everything came from. So the mainstream understanding of the scientists is that everything came by chance. So then the problem that comes is, now if everything came by chance, that science itself points that the probability of life coming to Earth is like 1 in a million. If we throw dice million times, if you have to get 6 on the dice, so it is like when you throw dice million times, then once you will get 6. It is like that. That is the kind of probability to sustain life, because the kind of the whole arrangement that is required to sustain life. So for example, the earth has to be tilted at a certain angle. If the earth is not tilted at that angle, then the seasons wouldn't come. The different seasons that we experience, winter, summer, fall, all those different seasons that are there, those seasons wouldn't come. If the earth would have been a little closer to the sun, it would have been so hard that the life wouldn't have been sustained on the earth. If it would have been a little away from sun, it would have been so cold that life couldn't sustain on the earth. Similarly, it is said that if Jupiter is not situated at the place where it is situated now, so what Jupiter does is, according to science itself, Jupiter acts like a cosmological vacuum cleaner. It sucks out all the different the meteors, etc., that are shooting. It sucks out those. Basically it kinds of protects Earth in like that. Every planet which is there in the cosmology that we see, it has a special role to play in sustaining the life as we know, on the planet Earth. So it is like 1 in a million chance. Now, how can we believe that it all come out by chance? It's not possible. So when Krishna say that actually it is by my energy that everything is working, that we have to agree to Krishna. Even the scientific studies point to that direction. There is this Christians use the design argument, and it is kind of true. That kinds of explains the how God is sustaining the universe. So let me stop here and see if there are any questions, comments, and then we can move on to the next verse. Anyone would like to comment anything? Pyari Prabhuji, Mataji would like to add something?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question. You mentioned how if the sun is closer, we'd all burn up, blah, blah, blah. But what about on planets where the sun is closer?
No, I didn't say that we will burn out. I say it will be too hot to sustain life on the earth. So that temperature that is required to sustain life as we know it, that will be very difficult. But we won't be burned out, I said.
Well, how is there life on other planets that are closer than the sun?
So no, again, when I say life, the life as we know the life, the kind of bodies that we have, the kind of the natural conditions that we need to sustain the life in the form that it exists on Earth. So the life may exist on other planets, but for example, it is explained that Chandra also has life on it. But there, the bodies of the inhabitants, they are like subtle bodies. They are not gross material bodies like ours. So Chandra is explained to be like a heavenly planet where everything is like it's like subtle matter, not gross matter. So that is like the natural environment for Chandra. But if you want to correct me, Prabhuji, please go ahead and do it.
Well, that's the point, that they have bodies, but they're different. But
Right.
I was
They're different bodies.
Just in case people were thinking that life has to be like this, otherwise it can't.
No, yeah, right.
Exist.
So exactly. Even scientists have figured that there are certain kind of bacteria who can live in fire, and we know by Vedic scriptures that there is life on sun also. So there are some beings who live on the sun planet. So we can't understand. We can understand, okay, we can't live in water, but we can see there are so many different species that live inside water. Similarly, we can't understand how there could be life within Earth, but there are so many species that live inside Earth. So it's very difficult for us to comprehend. But every planet, as you said rightly, it has some form of life, but the life as we know it, that is very difficult to sustain. So I was explaining more in scientific terms. So scientists will not accept that there is any life on moon or any other planet or sun. So they will only accept life as they understand, as they have seen life, So if we have to talk in those terms, then if the life has to sustain, then it is very difficult to sustain without the exact position in which everything is arranged in the universe.
Okay, next. You said that, for life to be created, or existing on this planet, it's like 1 in a million chances that it's happening. I don't see, I mean, I kind of think it's more than 1 in a million and one, because 1 in a million is not that much. I'll try it 1 million times and then finally we got life. If you have unlimited amount of time, it seems like
Yeah.
it would happen if it's 1 in a million.
Right. I mean, the point is it's almost impossible, next to impossible to, if we go by the causality theory, that it came out by just by chance theory. I mean, not causality. Everything came by chance. So it's almost impossible that life would exist. So when I say 1 in a million, I should say, almost impossible.
So Prabhuji, even I have read similar kind of what you explained about Newton, when he found the gravity, and some of his friends says, okay, we have found something, and which we always treat as it's given by God and all. If we do research more and more, we can find a lot of things. So to convince his friend, he made a solar system in his lab, like with a model. And next morning, he took his friend and went inside. And the friend said, oh, nice solar system. And he said, no, it was already there. I don't know from where it came. So he said, what you're talking about? It's impossible. So he said, see, this is a small solar system, and you are saying it is impossible to be there all the time. How can you believe this is this so huge solar system, and by chance it is there, and nobody has created this? So definitely someone is there, like a God or someone who has created. I'm just trying to find out how it happened. That's all. So he was very much like, as you rightly said, he was very theist, and he would believe in God.
Yeah. It's like very, it's like common sense. Like say, for example, and just forget about universe. If you come in a room and then you say that the room is nicely decorated and it is like everything is in its place and it's looking very tidy and clean, and then immediately you will ask, who is maintaining this such a beautiful, so beautifully it has been arranged, everything in this room. So everything is in its place, and naturally that question you will ask. You will not say that, okay, it by chance everything went into place and it is looking so beautiful and so tidy.
Correct.
So when we can understand by just entering into a small room, we have to also see that the universe is like a gigantic proportion. If everything is happening in the universe in order, then definitely there has to be someone who is maintaining that. So it just can't happen without that. If we go to big institutions like hospitals or hotels, we see that everything is happening so nicely there, so professionally run. But we know that there is a full management behind it. They have full like departments taking care of different things, and that is how everything works very nicely. If we talk about the universe, you have to understand it in the similar way. There has to be some management happening within the universe, which is keeping everything in order. Otherwise, if everything is happening by chance, we just don't know, tomorrow sun will come out or not, or tomorrow moon will come out or not. So because everything is happening by chance it may happen. So, and when we say that the scientists are able to predict the weather, so that means there is some order due to which they're able to predict. They can see, okay, today it is like this thing is here, this thing here. That means tomorrow this will be the temperature. So they are able to predict so precisely that this is going to be the maximum temperature, this is going to be the minimum temperature, and they are able to predict the hourly temperature also. That at this hour, this is the probability of rain, etc. So they are able to predict everything because there is an order in the universe. So that order there has to be someone who is maintaining that order. So order cannot come by its own. So
Correct, Prabhuji. Yeah. And even a solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse, when there was no such science or anything was there. In Veda, we have those kind of mention where they can predict this day. If you see the Hindu calendar, etc., they can predict in advance when the solar eclipse or lunar eclipse will happen based on the Vedic scripture or the calculation they have given. So without any kind of a instrument, they can do that.
right, exactly. Similarly, we can explain the law of karma. We can't say that everything that is happening in our life is happening by chance. There is this universe work based on some natural laws. Similarly, the law of karma is also like a natural law. So whatever is happening in our life, it is based on our previous karma, it is based on our destiny. So, and that is why it is said that we have to lead a responsible life, because whatever we do in our life today, that's going to impact us later, maybe in this life or next life, we don't know. But because there is an order, you can't say that everything that is happening in my life, it is happening randomly just by chance. It's everything is happening based on natural laws, and law of karma is also like a law of nature.
Yeah, I believe it was Newton who also discovered the law of karma.
Right. Yeah. The third law of Newton is law of karma, right?
Right.
Exactly. Prabhuji. Yeah. Every action is equal and opposite reaction. I mean, obviously, we understand that from a karma perspective, every action may not have opposite reaction, but every action will have a reaction. We can say that. So some actions may have favorable reactions, some may have unfavorable reactions.
But opposite means what he said. Opposite means if you are acting on something, that thing is also acting on you. So that's opposite means what Newton has said.
Yeah. So exactly, that's not how the law of karma works. Yeah. So exactly not, that is not how the law of karma works. It is explained about karma. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Gahana karmano gati. It's very difficult to understand the law of karma, how it works. So it may happen that if you did one action today, the reaction may come in small proportions over a period of time, or it may happen that you did multiple actions, 20 different actions, and you get one reaction for those 20 actions. So all those permutations and combinations are possible when it comes to karma, and it's very difficult for us to find a one-to-one correlation. So there are certain things for which you can say that yes, there is a one-to-one correlation. For example, today if I eat 50 ice creams, tomorrow I'm sure my throat will be choked up, and you can say yes, it's karma. I ate 50 ice creams and tomorrow my throat is choked up. But not every action is like that. So
Yeah, it's also in the Manu Samhita, it says that if you killed someone, then the least amount of reaction you'll get is you have to be killed. And if you're not killed, then you have to suffer more than just being killed. So the karma is not exactly the same. One way is more lenient. So it says that a king, when he kills a murderer, he's being merciful to him because he's minimizing his reaction for the murder.
exactly.
I have another question.
Yes, Prabhuji. Please give the answer also.
I actually don't know the answer to this one, but
Okay.
I don't know if you'll know, but you'll say something, I'm sure. Just thinking about Srila Prabhupada, like when they built the temple in Vrindavan, there was a tumul tree there, and Prabhupada had to build the temple basically around the tree, so the tree was in the courtyard rather than cut the tree down. Prabhupada was very much against, unnecessarily cutting down a tree. And these prachetas, they meditated for so long, such austerity, underwater, and then they come out. You would think they'd be more peaceful and be compassionate. Nowadays people hug trees, and they decide to just cut all these trees down. It's like, why?
Yeah, as you said, I'll say something, so I just say my understanding, Prabhuji. So what I understand from that pastime is the trees had covered almost the entire planet. There was no free land remaining almost, So that was like too much. That was there actually. I mean, it was not healthy. It was not. So everything has to be in a balance. It is said, and the balance was disturbed because of so many trees that are there. So, like for example, if the whole Earth is covered by water, that is going to disturb the ecological balance of the planet, and then we need place for even the life to sustain. In the sense that the life that cannot sustain in water, that life needs land to sustain. So similarly, the trees had kind of inundated the whole planet at that time. So they were very disturbed. They were very angry when they came out of the water, and then they decided to just, ruthlessly cut down all the trees. I think they burnt it with their um, power, something like that, mystical powers, right?
I don't think they use the chainsaw.
Yeah. So that is just my understanding. But if you have some understanding about it, please share it, Prabhuji.
I think that's good. That reminds me of, was it Dhruva Maharaj
Yeah,
who was killing the,
right. Yakshas.
yeah, and then he just kind of got into it just too much, and then
Too
they
much.
finally stopped him too.
Right. Yeah. At that time, I think Manu comes over there and stops him. He was killing the yakshas left and right without even thinking. So similarly, I think that is what has happened with Prachita when they were like too much. They went too far. Then at that time, this Chandra comes over there, and then he asked them to stop. He couldn't obviously fight with him because they were all the devotees of Lord Vishnu, and they just got the benediction from Lord Vishnu. Similar thing happens with Dhruv Maharaj also. Kubera comes over there, but he is not fighting with Dhruv Maharaj because he's like a devotee of Vishnu. But he does give Dhruva some benedictions, so that was good.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I don't. Thank you, Guruji. So I don't think we have time for another verse, but if anyone has any other comments, any questions, anything that you would like to share, or if you would like to mention anything on the previous verses.
I'd just like to say that atheist, what was his name in the wheelchair?
Stephen Hawkins.
Stephen Hawkins, yeah. Fortunately, I forget his name, 1 second later. That's nice. But after he passed away, there was a joke, a cartoon about him, and there was a big, long, huge stairway to heaven where he can go, but he was in a wheelchair.
He couldn't go. Yeah.
That was good.
There was another joke that I read on him. Something like he must be in the black hole. Don't remember now, but it was also a very nice cartoon on Stephen Hawkins. It's funny like how when he passed away, so many jokes were made on him. I mean, he did make a lot of good contributions, like positive scientific contributions also, but ultimately he kind of would have caused many people to become atheists because people who believed on him a lot, they would have probably kind of followed his arguments and kind of became atheists because of that. So that was not good. Like taking people away from God is like the biggest disservice you can do. So and similarly, when you bring people to God, that is like a great service you can do to God. So
One time, I believe it was in Australia, and I believe it was like Prabhupada was still on the planet, and the devotee, there was a big debate between a devotee and an atheist, a big atheist, famous atheist at the time. I don't know who he is because I don't remember the last atheist. I don't. But during the debate, that the devotee was kind of smashing this atheist, and he was getting really frustrated. And the atheist said, "Oh God!" And then everybody cheered.
Yeah. I also read these funny things on internet. Like there is this site Quora.com where people like ask questions. So once I read a question, I am a new atheist. What should I know? So that means he's like a new, just became an atheist. And before that, he might be a theist.
I'm new to atheism. Can you help me?
Yeah. The point is like whatever great men do, common people follow. That is what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So when people like Stephen Hawking, who are influential to a certain extent, people watch out for them, look for them, and when they kind of give atheistic statements, then it is a power. Similarly, there are other influential people like who's that who gave money for Krishna book? I'm sorry, I'm missing the name.
George Harrison?
George Harrison. Sorry, thank you, Prabhuji. When he became a devotee, so many people became devotee because of him, because he thought, oh, he's getting initiation from Srila Prabhupada, he's getting guidance from Srila Prabhupada. So many people actually became Krishna conscious due to him. I was hearing that other class from Radharaman Prabhu the other day. He also kind of became devotee after George Harrison became a devotee. So it's such a good service he did. You have probably have got so many people to at the feet of Krishna. So that's like a great service he did. So when like great, like influential people, whatever they do, most like common people tend to follow their example. So okay, we have 2 more minutes remaining. Any other things, any questions, comments about anything?
I have a comment. If those who spend a lot of time at Home Depot might notice this, is that they play the same songs. And one song they play quite often is My Sweet Lord by George Harrison, and they chant Hare Krishna in it. So spend time at Home Depot.
Yeah. All right. If there are no other questions or comments, we can end the class here. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhyabhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.
People, thank you.
Hare